fortunate enough to travel from continent to continent, you'll probably say we have a lot of water on Earth, and you would be right. But if we have so much water on Earth, why is it that 1 in every 10 people in the world do not have clean water to drink? Something that we took for granted today when we opened up the tap. The first answer to that question would be that, in fact, we do not have a lot of water that we can use. Of all the water that we see when we fly from continent to continent, or when we show our kids that picture of the world, only 2.5% of that is free of salt. The salt water is much more expensive to treat, and imagine if we wanted to bring it here to the heart of the African economy, it's way too expensive. And of that 2.5% that's left, 70% of that is trapped in glaciers and permanent snow, only leaving us with a very minuscule amount of water that is finite, that we have to use for agriculture, for drinking, and for industry. And over time, as economies have grown and populations have grown, the amount of water that we have available has steadily declined. So here in South Africa, for example, the projection is in just 11 years' time, we'll have a 17% gap between the water available and the water that we need for agriculture, drinking, and industry. So, in different parts of the world, some statistics say as much as 1.7 billion people now live in places where the amount of water that they demand is actually more than the amount of water resources they have available. Some people have described it as a crisis. In the water community, one of our favorite phrases is, where you find water, it is either too little, too much, or too dirty. Too little, as we've seen in Cape Town, but Cape Town is by no means the only place that has experienced this kind of crisis. California, Sao Paulo, recently Chennai, Australia many times. Too dirty, as we saw, for example, in 2010 with the largest accidental oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, that ended up costing BP $65 billion in payments to make all the payments for all the people that had been affected, stakeholders affected by this oil spill. Too much, as we saw in 2011 in Thailand, when we had massive flooding in Thailand, and because Thailand at the time was the second biggest producer of computer chips, global computer production got disrupted. Who would have ever thought this thing that we use every day, the PC, has a supply chain that could be disrupted by floods? But ladies and gentlemen, to describe this problem this way is perhaps a little bit, we're absolving ourselves as human beings of the crisis and putting it on God's shoulders so that only He can solve it. Because, in fact, the global water crisis is also driven by the decisions that we make every day as users, as water managers. The phrase that I prefer from the global water community is that the global water crisis is a crisis of decision making, and it is a crisis of governance. By using the framing of governance, it allows us to get better insights of what we can do to turn this around. I'm going to use one example out of many of one of these insights, and that's municipal water losses. And please travel with me on a journey to show how governance influences water through the lens of municipal water losses and what can be done about it. To do this, let's take an imaginary direct flight from OR Tambo, Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Phnom Penh. And when we get there together, please join me in a time machine to go back to 1993. Cambodia has just come out of a period of prolonged war for decades. The economy has been ravaged. The infrastructure is poor. a young engineer called a young engineer called San Chong takes over the water supply authority of Phnom Penh. At that time in Phnom Penh, out of all the water distributed through the water supply, 72% was either lost through leaks, non-paid bills, or stolen. As San Chong and his team try to get users to pay, they get to the army barracks, and the army chief puts a gun at his head when he tried to close it down for not paying his bill. He eventually closed it down. He was determined to do this. And this army chief paid his bill. We'll get back to that. Let's fly back on this imaginary flight, because we don't need to go to Southeast Asia, to Cambodia, to Phnom Penh to find how these things have been done. Jump with me on a taxi 1 hour south of Joburg to the municipality of Emfuleni. Smaller time machine this time, only to 2010. The municipality of Emfuleni has 36% water loss out of the water that they distribute in their system. They don't have the capacity or the money to solve this challenge. In partnership with a large industrial water user in the municipality and a civil society organization, they put out something called a performance-based contract, which meant a contractor would get paid out of the savings that they did for the municipality. At that time, they were buying water from a bulk water supply at 410 million rand a year, about $41 million a year. 150 million of that, $50 million was getting lost. The contractor came in, did the work. Within about 2 years, the initial investment, the savings from the work, started to exceed the initial investment, which meant the project started to pay for itself. But along the way is a beautiful story that plumbers and artisans were trained and put to work. The municipality became better at managing sophisticated public-private partnership contracts. Water was saved that we can't afford to lose. And the contractor went on to do this elsewhere on the continent. A really beautiful story for South Africa Incorporated. But to really understand the meaning of these stories, one has to understand how the water value chain works and its complexity. When we open up taps to drink water, there are a couple of things that should have happened and worked well. One is, here in South Africa, most of our water is from rivers that are shared with other countries. So the government has to negotiate with other countries to access it. You have to build dams and pipes, and then push this water with expensive energy over hills and long distances. Bulk water utilities treat it with expensive and complex technology. My and your municipality buy it, deliver it through a complex mesh of infrastructure networks, and then voila, today, this morning, we had a glass of water to drink. We borrowed it, made it dirty, and then through the wastewater treatment system, hopefully the municipality treats it again, and then it's not too polluted when it gets back into the system, right? But this value chain has many organizations, 9 different types of organizations in South Africa, 150 municipalities, a lot of economic interest, politics that is strewn across this value chain. It is super complex. So what we saw in those 2 examples is not just stuff that is made out of simple technical solutions that you just get out and do tomorrow. I came across this type of examples in conferences in 2012 while working for the United Nations. And there was a movement that was starting to begin then that said we need to develop the partnerships between all these organizations that are part of the value chain to make it work. We also need to look at whether public-private partnerships in some cases are an option for solving capacity and financial challenges for municipalities, for example. I wanted to join this movement. I wanted to be part of the next Emfuleni. I wanted to be part of the next Phnom Penh. So I left my job in the UN and I joined a crowd called the Strategic Water Partners Network that was starting to do some of this work. During my 4-year tenure there, we did a couple of things. I'll just share a few. One is we managed to audit all the municipalities in the country for their water loss so as to incentivize them to change. We developed a standard performance-based contract that would allow them, if they wanted to enter into complex public-private partnerships for water loss management. A few other ancillaries came along during that time. A couple of lessons that I learned in doing this work, and these are all the partners, by the way, that were involved. The first is that the solutions for managing water scarcity in the future are not going to be large dams and pipelines as we've had in the past. In fact, here in South Africa, we've run out of dam sites. They're going to be small, decentralized, dispersed solutions, reuse, water loss management, which will make for an even more complex value chain. And to get this value chain to work as a harmonious orchestra is going to need third parties that connect all these organizations and individuals with their different interests that are part of this value chain. Partnerships are no longer an option, they're a necessity. The second lesson that I learned is, if you're doing stuff that's new, political will is not an input. Get the pathfinders that want to move forward and use your results to get the political will along the way. Last year I moved on. I'm now with a similar outfit doing this kind of stuff globally called the 2030 Water Resources Group. I'm based out of the World Bank. I truly believe that SDG 17 on partnerships is a key mechanism that we'll need to achieve SDG 6 on clean water and sanitation, so that 1 in 10 people in the world don't have water like you and I, 780 million people, can, during my career, have water. This is something that I truly believe in, and even though creating partnerships is a messy business, I get up every day, I do it, it's exciting, I wouldn't be anywhere else in the world. Thank you.